Welcome to another edition of the Keep Africa Trading podcast from TradeMark Africa. My name is Moses Kemibaro, and I'm your host for this particular discussion. In today's conversation, we have with us Hilda. Hilda is somebody who's known to me for probably the last couple of decades. She's been a trailblazer in the technology space. She's also greatly involved in TradeMark Africa, where we are currently attending the Africa Trade Development Forum here in Kigali, Rwanda, on the 2nd and 3rd of December. And we're going to get a chance to hear from her around what her journey has been, how she's involved with TradeMark, but more importantly, looking at the future of digital trade and how her organization and organizations like TradeMark are making this a reality across the African continent. Thank you so much for joining us, Hilda.
Thank you, Moses.
So I'll give you a chance to introduce yourself, even though we know each other,
Yes.
and you can tell us your full name, the organization you represent, and what brings you to Kigali.
Absolutely. My name is Hilda Moraa. I'm the CEO and founder of Pezesha. So Pezesha is a Swahili word that means financial enabler. That ultimately summarizes what we do. We provide SME working capital, basically go to the underserved small businesses that would otherwise not get capital from banks, and we take a collaborative approach to solve that problem, which means that we work with different partners to bring these SMEs to be included. And I'm happy to talk more about that approach, because it's really one of the reasons why, and the commitment for providing SME working capital is the reason I'm here today. But that ties into the work that I do as an E4Trade advocate under the UN program initiative. And I represent the English-speaking countries. And what that means is my role is to basically to find digital entrepreneurs like myself, mainly women,
Okay.
and bring them together into these forums and masterclasses that allow them to basically access digital tools, access mentorship, but also through the UN, we're also able to access quite a lot of networks and opportunities to drive policy.
So you're one of probably the most successful digital entrepreneurs, a woman in the country, as far as Kenya is concerned, and obviously the region. But let's talk a little bit about that inclusivity issue, and also, the importance of getting women involved in trade, the convergence of technology, and what it is that you're doing at Pezesha. Maybe you can expound a bit more on that.
Absolutely. Our core mission and why we started this business is definitely to drive and to solve these inequalities. And as you know, Africa is full of inequality problems, and the reason why we're not where we need to be as far as digital trade is concerned is because of these same inequality problems. And what we're trying to do in Pezesha is to say, these underserved SMEs that have been excluded, majority being women, of course. We're talking of $328 billion financing gap, which exists across the African continent.
Wow.
And almost 50% of that is women. Yeah. And that number is increasing because of the current situation that we have from a global level. The macro reasons, access to credit has become very tough given the current economic situations that are happening. And so for us, these inequalities are not only just in terms of credit, but also in terms of financial services at large. And so we're trying to, basically bring these women into the ecosystem of Pezesha. And the journey starts with, basically helping them to be educated and give them financial education, working with different players. So the way our platform works is we work with different partners like Safaricom, who have the network. We work with banks. We work with supply chain entities that basically drive e-commerce. And so these networks are at the center of bringing women together to trade. And so we've taken advantage of these networks to come in with our expertise in credit, to then credit score these women, because there's quite a lot of big data that exists within all those networks, alternative data. Then we credit score these businesses and take them through our journey of credit, which then means we set them somewhere, and allow them to grow with us up the Pezesha ladder. So it's a process. It's definitely a lot of work, and we do it with partners who are strategically driven to solve this mission of inequalities. We're in Kenya and in Uganda and now scaling across East Africa. And that takes a lot of collaboration and intentionality into how we are solving these inequalities. And so for us, the end game is really to see these women trading, to see these women make money, but also to see these women create a network effect in their communities that drive, that ecosystem growth of inclusivity.
That's fantastic. So the ability is that when they are empowered, when they are able to trade better and do better,
Absolutely.
it affects the rest of the community around them.
Exactly.
Fantastic. What has been the impact of the work you're doing at Pezesha in terms of, if you have any highlights or numbers, or just even anecdotes of people that have benefited and you've changed their lives? Can you share some of that with us?
Absolutely. I think the premise of our success is the impact that we create. You know, there's so many things we can do. We can make money, we can scale in different markets, but if we're not creating impact to this small business, then really at the end, there's really nothing we're trying to do as far as our vision is concerned. And so, you know, for me, my favorite story is a story of Rose. You know, Rose is a small trader at the back of Kibera streets. We started with her back in 2017 when we kicked off this company. And honestly, Moses, we didn't know what we were doing. We just wanted to go and see what are the problems that Rose is facing on the ground. And I was employee number one, to figure out the problems of Rose. And we went there with my lean team at the time, you know, and speaking to Rose, you know, she had a small business, grocery business. She just wanted to grow and give the best for her 8 kids, give them a better education, but also to grow her business, to do many things, because a community was relying on her. And she was training other women to basically understand how to do small businesses and to keep themselves busy, you know, and not to be, you know, in situations of early marriages. And really this, what we call the chama, was really, she was the treasurer. And so she had a lot of opportunities. So, I mean, fast forward, Rose started with us with 10,000 shillings loan for her small groceries. At the back of COVID, she grew with us. She came back and we supported her business to thrive. And she had already graduated over time to around 50,000 Kenya shillings.
Wow.
And now as we speak, almost 4 years later, Rose has different branches within Kibera and outside of Kibera, I kid you not, employing more women. And she's not able to take her kids to better schools because her loan has graduated significantly. She's shown that she has the ability to repay and actually also grow and create opportunities. And she's brought many, many other women within the network to benefit for the credit. And that's what I'm calling the network effect. And for me, that story is not only just the reason why we do what we do, but because we want to create more opportunities and create more roses in our journey.
Wow. So coming back again, I'd like to understand the convergence between your organization and yourself and the other roles that you play, and how that converges with TradeMark. Maybe you can tell us how the two are connected.
No, absolutely. TradeMark for us is really important when we're thinking about digital trade. Digital trade and innovation is at the center of what we do with all the MSMEs we work with and the partners that we work with to drive financial access and inclusion. And so where our worlds converge is when we think about equitable growth in the SMEs that we support. We then have opportunities like the African Continental Free Trade Area that endeavors to bring 55 continents together into one market. These are opportunities for people like us to then tap into that regional integration and say, how do we empower more SMEs across all the continents instead of going from one country to another, because we are first a Pan-African business. And so one of the ways is to take advantage of this, collaborations and networks that are formed under the Africa Trade to then allow us to access more SMEs and intentional continents that actually can help us to scale beyond just the markets where we operate. So we're looking at it from a point of policy, because this same platform brings regulators together. We're looking at it from the point of access to markets, because these same forums are driving access to markets. And for us is beyond the SMEs we support as a business as well. We want to be able to access more markets where we can drive financial inclusion. And then lastly, it's as we see more value chains continue to converge through these Africa Trade Forums, we then have the opportunity to dream about our vision becoming a reality. Because then we're asking ourselves, how can we form ecosystems that allow us to then not have to learn and relearn some of the mistakes we've made in the past. And of course, in driving digital trade is the endeavor, but then all these things are converging in terms of learnings, collaborations, and policies that allow us to then scale as a business, but also the SMEs we support.
Fantastic. So thinking forward, the next sort of 5 to 10 years, what comes to mind in regards to Pezesha, and then also in the context of digital trade across Africa. What are your thoughts around those two scenarios?
Looking at the future it's definitely something that we're very excited about because of the work we've already done. We've laid a very strong foundation that we're seeing other partners come in and to leverage on our infrastructure. Banks have now also come in and started working with us, providing much more affordable capital to allow us to scale. And for us, then we're asking ourselves, where else do we go? Because we've done the work. We've done the hard work together with my team. Now we're saying, how do we scale this infrastructure? So we look at the next 5 years as a Pan-Africa business.
Yes.
And this Pan-Africanism allows us to then say, we can take this solution from Uganda to Burundi to Nigeria, and it works.
And you have the right model already in place.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so, we're very excited about that dream, and we are not going to do it by ourselves. We've already, built collaborations that actually are going to help us to get there. But that said, in terms of digital trade, is then if we're able to empower these SMEs who are excluded, majority being women, imagine the kind of continental trade from one border to another that's going to start happening, because now we've built this ecosystem from one country to the other that allow SMEs in Kenya to collaborate with SMEs in Uganda. And now we can ask ourselves, what can we do beyond credit and other financial services?
Wow, even providing linkages.
Exactly, to provide linkages. If you have an SME, like one of our SMEs, basically supplies, textile, which is really needed in many African countries. So how do you find another SME doing the same thing in another market and start to link them? And so that's where we want to get to. And of course, as part of the partnership that we have under this particular endeavor with TradeMark, is really to ensure that we tap into those linkages to get there faster.
Great. The next question is really more around you. And it's really about understanding Hilda from the perspective of what drives her, what makes you passionate about what you do in your organization, and also what are sort of the impacts that you see from the work that you do?
What drives me is Rose, the story of Rose. I've been in this space for more than 13 years in the fintech space. I've seen it all in terms of, what works and what doesn't. In the early days of digital credit and fintech, there was a lot of fragmentation. And this being my second fintech, I've seen a couple of things that, because of that experience, that need to be done right once and for all. And so, we're not just looking at it from a perspective of credit. We're asking ourselves, how do we build an infrastructure, an operating system in that regard?
So to speak,
And so for me, my motivation has always been to do this infrastructure and to do it for the long term, to make sure that if you're going to include Rose, then you have to make sure that that infrastructure is so sustainable to scale. And so that's what motivated me to start Pezesha, is really to go all the way, to do this hard task of inclusion of SMEs, who are the backbone of any economy in Africa and across, globally.
Yes.
But they are excluded, majority, exactly. They are the drivers of the jobs that we need for the future. They are the drivers of the generational effect of prosperity that we need, but they're still left behind. And so the question is why and who is going to do it? It's going to be me. It's going to be Pezesha. So that's the journey we've embarked on, and that's the motivation. We want to do this right once and for all, because a lot of people are going to benefit from it. And that impact that we drive is definitely going to create a generational effect that we have never seen before.
Fantastic. Last questions. First one is, are there any other key takeaways you might want to share with the audience, especially in the context of the conference we're attending, in particular around digital trade? And then the second question is really more about where people can find you, how they can reach you, whether it's your personal profile or your business online, so that they can also reach out to you if they see there's an opportunity to engage.
No, absolutely. I think this forum has been really insightful so far. I didn't imagine that, you come here and only find fintechs. There's everyone in the room. There's policymakers, there's private sector in numbers, and everyone who is needed at the table to make the right decisions as far as digital trade is concerned. And so for me, it's just to take advantage of building those synergies while I'm here in Kigali, and go back home and implement and do the job. Because what we've seen in the past is these forums bring, of course, the right people, but then the question is, when you get out of here, what are you going to do?
What happens next?
Exactly. So there's quite a lot of things that we've taken away, including the synergies that we need to develop, but more importantly, to think about, digital trade from the perspective of that small SME, who needs to be included. Where do we start, and how do we do it right to make sure that they grow? And so there's quite a lot of work to be done after this. And so for me, it's just to encourage everyone who's here to go back home and implement. Where can people find us? We have a very strong presence in the online in terms of our website, pezesha.com. Of course, we are based in Nairobi and Kampala. We have offices in the markets we operate. We have a fully fledged team that is always there to speak and to basically collaborate. But I think in a nutshell, you'll find us here, you'll find us everywhere. We're a digital company.
Okay.
So for us, it's really important that the work we do is also to drive digital innovation, but also digital inclusion.
Well, Hilda, thank you so much.
It's been
a pleasure. It's my first time to interview you. And I think the insights you've shared have been incredible. And more importantly, I think the work you're doing is so impactful, especially for women. And especially, I think the vision you have for your business to sort of do more for traders across the African continent is really compelling.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for sharing, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Yeah?
Awesome.
So there you've heard it from Hilda, a trailblazer when it comes to the fintech space in East Africa and across the continent. She's helping women of all sizes in different types of businesses to trade better, to access capital that has not been available to them historically, and really, creating an opportunity for them to succeed in ways that may not have been possible pre-Pezesha. Thank you so much for joining us again for this conversation of Keeping Africa Trading podcast. And more importantly, we are having wonderful sessions here at the Africa Trade Development Forum in Kigali, Rwanda, and we hope we'll catch you in the next conversation.